Hey, thanks for tuning in. Join me for another episode of Coverages with Charlie, where I provide simple answers to the most frequently asked insurance questions that I receive.
Hey there, this is Chris Claflin with Sunnon Property Management, serving the greater Charlotte area. And today I've got my friend Charlie Sternberg here with Dexter Insurance Associates. And I had a couple questions for Charlie because I get asked these questions all the time. We're probably going to try to make this a couple videos maybe so we can help folks out. Whether you are a full-time professional real estate investor or maybe an accidental landlord and this is your very first time renting, you probably have some good insurance questions. Most folks do. So first and foremost, let's just dive right into, I get asked this all the time, Charlie. Most people don't know they need to go get a landlord policy when they are renting out their home. So can you tell us kind of what's a landlord policy about? What does that mean and how is that different from my homeowners?
Absolutely. So a homeowner's policy is written with the idea that you are going to be living in this property. And so a landlord policy is a completely different policy that if you're renting out your home, you really have to make sure that you've written with a landlord policy, because the carrier, if there comes time for a claim, is going to look and say, well, wait a minute, you said you were living in this home and there's a claim and you've been renting it out long term. So a landlord policy is just a separate policy that's not going to have things like a lot of personal property, because if you have a homeowners, you have all your stuff in there. So this landlord policy is not going to have a ton of personal property, maybe just some personal property for your appliances and things like that. It's also going to have more of a loss of use option. So if you know there's, God forbid, a fire or something, there's an option to have a longer and more extensive loss of use because you're renting it out. It's an income source for you rather than your own personal residence.
Awesome. So thanks. I appreciate that. At a high level, that helps me a lot. So, hey, Charlie, how much is that? Sounds like it's going to cost me a lot of money. Is that going to cost me more than what I'm paying today?
It's really not. In fact, sometimes landlord policies can be less expensive because you're not insuring all that personal property or something like that. So, but the key is to talk to your insurance agent and let them know what's going on in your life. You know, if you're moving out and you're going to be renting that property, you should have someone that you can call and say, hey, this property is going to be vacant for 30 days, 60 days. We're renting it out with some new renters. We just put all brand new appliances in there. I want to make sure that we're covered. Things like that. So it's really important to have that conversation. And then also, again, the pricing. I'm an independent agent, so I'm able to shop a bunch of different carriers for folks, and I always recommend getting with an independent agent because they can really look at the different markets and try to find you the most competitive rate out there.
Awesome. Great. Now, typically, in our agreements that we go over with owners, we recommend they have at least about $1 million of liability coverage, at least $500,000. Now, a lot of people get kind of confused the difference between liability coverage and, I'm going to get this wrong, but the coverage for the dwelling, right? So can you help me with, why might someone want to do that? That sounds like it's going to be a lot of money to some people, but it's really not that expensive, right?
Liability coverage on a homeowner's policy or a landlord policy is extremely inexpensive. And it's going to cover bodily injury or property damage that you're liable for. So let's say you're renting out your property and they have a party at their house and somebody slips and falls on the steps coming into their house. Well, they could drag you into a lawsuit as the owner and saying this was an unsafe environment, you didn't fix the steps, something like that. So liability is definitely important. Minimum $500,000. If you're renting out your house, we recommend $1 million as well. Yeah. Of course, that's completely different than the dwelling coverage for the home. So that's going to cover perils if it burns down, if there's a lightning strike, if there's a pipe bursts in the wall and suddenly water's flying out everywhere. That's a completely different coverage, and that's based on the value to replace your home. It has nothing to do with liability coverage.
Okay, awesome. Great, thanks.
Yeah.